Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us. My name is Dennis Schultz. I am the Executive Director of the Blacks in Technology Foundation. Today, we have with us Alan Stein from Kadima Careers, who is going to talk to us about what it's going to take for you to get into a FAANG company or a large tech company for that matter. Doesn't necessarily have to be one of the FAANGs. And he's going to provide some practical tips, specifically 6 steps on what you can do in order to increase your odds. So with that, I will let you take it away, Alan. The floor is yours.
Thanks so much, Dennis. I appreciate this, and it's been great getting to know you and Blacks in Tech throughout the last couple of years. So first, if folks don't know what FAANG stands for, just a quick primer on that. It stands for Facebook, Apple, Amazon, Netflix, and Google. That are kind of like the big 5 companies that folks generally love to work for. I would also add Salesforce and Microsoft to the mix, but Masanam doesn't go as nicely as FAANG. So the agenda today, we'll talk a little bit about my background and results. We'll talk about the tech landscape and how you should think about that as you progress in your career. We'll talk about the job search process, how it works. We'll talk about diversity in hiring, and I'm wearing a shirt here that says Tableau supports Black lives. And I used to be part of Tableau, and I can tell you some interesting stories about how companies market what they do and versus what they actually do. It's not always perfectly aligned. Then we'll talk about getting noticed with recruiters. We'll talk about a 6-step process that we've developed called the growth framework that will help you be efficient and effective at getting noticed and considered for great roles at some of these top tech companies. We'll clarify some information about comp and benefits and show you what is possible in the tech landscape. We'll share a little bit about how you can negotiate for more. We'll talk a little bit about Kedema. And excitingly, as part of our BIT partnership, we are offering 3 free scholarships to folks part of the BIT community to join Kedema. And it's a 3-month program. We'll talk a little bit about that. And then finally, we will have time for some questions. You will bring the questions and I will have some answers, hopefully, or I'll make some stuff up. So next up, a little bit about me. So the picture is a picture of me and my family and my dogs, Coco and Tootsie, who are awesome dogs. But my career started out in, 3 decades ago now or so, 1995, where I was going for a PhD in psychology. I've always been interested in the mind and decision-making. I think that's informed a lot of me going forward. But the PhD program, while I had a full ride there, I did not want to spend 7 years in getting my PhD. So I dropped out of there, wound up on Wall Street, partly because of network. Wound up working in equity research. So I was one of the people that you put buy, sell, or hold on stocks. Worked in some interesting areas. Gaming, not video gaming, but the casinos out in Vegas, hotel industry, biotech, and banking. Did that for 4 years. Then because of a network, and again, you'll hear that theme, because I happened to play fantasy baseball with somebody who was IMing me, instant messaging me on chat, looking for someone to work at his venture capital firm. That's how I got noticed for that VC, and I wound up working in venture capital, which is typically a very hard industry to get into. And I got in there because of network. After 2 or 3 years in VC, I realized that it wasn't my cup of tea. I read the book Moneyball by Michael Lewis. You might have seen the book as well. And I wanted to pivot into baseball. What I did is I went down to the baseball winter meetings in Nashville, Tennessee, and the minor league baseball meetings in Atlanta, Georgia. And through networking, through targeting the right companies, came back with jobs working for the New York Mets and the Toronto Blue Jays, minor league affiliates. Realized that the work life sucked, the pay sucked. I set my goals on business school, went to Columbia Business School. Then again, like the common theme is I was able to identify where I wanted to go, figure out how to get there, which target companies and organizations to get to. But from Columbia, I went to American Express, top marketing company in New York. Amex, I got a little tired of the slow career progression. And also I was interested in tech and the tech space. I looked at several different companies. I applied to Google 5 times, got rejected or ghosted from them multiple times. And actually, I was not ghosted. I was either rejected or ignored from them. And then finally got to Google. Worked at Google. Actually, those years are wrong. It was 2011 to 2016. Left Google, worked at a couple different startups, and realized that the startup space pays not so as well as big tech. And also you work with a wide variety of quality of talent there. So I went back to big tech, to Facebook, and then from there went to Tableau, and then Tableau was acquired by Salesforce. So that's my career. I've worked at a lot of these large organizations, and I've been hired at a lot. I've been let go from some, and I have hired tons of people at these organizations as well. This next chart is not to not to brag, but really to show you what is possible once you pivot into the tech space. So the graph is my W-2 earnings, my compensation each year over the last 25 years or so. And what you see is it has gone up significantly since I made the pivot from American Express to the world of tech. You'll see some up and down arrows there. Some of those downs occurred because of cancer. Some of it occurred because of not so pleasant work experience, but the upward trajectory and the earnings potential are phenomenal once you get into these tech companies. And I was at a senior leadership role, but even the people on my team with lower levels of experience were getting compensated quite well and more than I ever made. Now I'll share a little bit about the tech landscape. And the way I kind of think about the tech landscape is there's like 4 different tiers of companies. There's the FAANGs, and I would there's a little bit of blurry line between the top tier and the second tier, but these are large companies. Just got slacked. Apologies for that. I should have put my notifications off. The top tier tech companies are companies that most people a lot of people want to work for. They hire hundreds of thousands of people. In the case of Amazon, they have 1.5 million employees or something crazy like that. Second tier, solid companies. Then you have a lot of up and coming companies that are not public yet, but are on the verge, are unicorns. And the definition of a unicorn are typically private companies that have achieved $1 billion plus valuation. And those are some of the organizations you see here, Stripe, TikTok, Gong. And then you have some startup companies that are earlier stage. So that's how I kind of think about the tech landscape. And depending on the level of risk you're willing to take, depending on the stage in life, depending on what sort of benefits, what sort of work-life balance you want, that will help inform the decisions of which sort of organizations you want to target. Next up. So now that you know some of the companies that you may be interested in, I want to share with folks why recruiting in general, especially in the tech space, it can be very frustrating. So if you look at this slide here, once a role gets opened, and I can tell you this from my experience of recruiting at Salesforce and Google and Facebook, and to a lesser extent, Tableau and Amex, when we posted a role, we would get within a week about 100 applications, maybe more. Within 2 weeks, we would have several hundred, if not 1,000 more. So at that, like when these companies post roles, not just are you interested, but millions of other people are interested. I believe last year alone, Google had 3 million applicants for their jobs, and I think they hired about 15 or 20,000 people. So there is huge competition there. Next up, once you get past there, you will be looked at by a recruiter. Some people put a disproportionate amount of effort into the ATS, or the application tracking software. This is one of the most misunderstood pieces of software, and people are trying to game their resume to to optimize for an ATS, an application tracking software. The ATS is essentially a customer relationship management database, and recruiters, humans, are often looking through your resume and your LinkedIn profile between 6 and 60 seconds. So they need to quickly cull down between those thousands of people to like around hundreds of people that they will look at manually. And then they will select about 10 to 20 people that recruiter will reach out to saying, hey, we saw your resume, we saw your application, we're excited to talk to you. Of those, there'll be some drop off of people that respond. But when you get that reach out, you're like, oh, Google really wants to hire me. They send me this note. At this point, you still have like a 1 in 20 shot of succeeding or a 19 out of 20 shot of not getting that role. If then you speak to a recruiter on the phone and the recruiter is asking a few pieces of information, about 50 to 80% of people that speak to the recruiter will get to the next stage, to the hiring manager. And the hiring manager will typically talk to about 5 to 7 people. Maybe you can say 3 to 7 people. And that hiring manager is trying to assess, do you have the right experience that makes it worth our time to go to the next stage, to the interview loops? And the interview loops are a situation where I'm sure many of you have been part of, where you're interviewing usually with 4 different people, 4 45-minute slots. And they could be back to back, they could be different days or so forth. But those are interview loops where you're talking to 4 different people and they are assessing you on a variety of different criteria. When you get to that interview, in the old days, we used to call those on-site. With COVID, people are doing it virtually. When you get to that stage, you may think that you're in the final rounds, and you are in the final rounds, but so are 3 to 5 other people. So even if you knock that out of the park, it really matters of how you compare to the other competitive set. So you need to do well, but you also just have to be slightly better than the second best candidate, and you can't always control that. Then after the interview loops, after the 3 to 5 people are interviewed, the team gets together, they decide, okay, are you hire or no hire? And then how do we rank those individuals amongst the hires? And if you are the number 1 choice, you will get an offer. And that offer will not be the highest amount of money that they are planning to offer you. So we'll talk a little bit about that. But that's how the whole interview process works. It's quite consistent. It could be daunting, but there are ways to improve the likelihood of your success at each stage to get to the next level, the next stage. Now I want to talk a little bit about diversity. So not only is it hard to get into these companies because of the number, but then you look in these organizations and they're all talking a big game about diversity. And if you just want to see a company that's talking a big game about diversity, just go to www.equality.com. And if you even think about that, like the fact that I'll tell you who bought that URL, the fact that Salesforce even bought that URL, they are thinking about that as a marketing perspective. But these companies are marketing a lot. They're saying that they do want to hire a diverse talent. And speaking from inside the wall, and like I'm wearing this shirt here where they sent out to people that were part of the Black sales force, bold force within a Black sales force, and also worked in Tableau. The companies do want to make a change here. However, they are not looking hard enough for the talent, in my opinion, and I'll tell you why that's occurring. But diversity, you've probably heard this up the wazoo from a lot of these tech companies, that they do want to hire more diverse individuals. If you look at the numbers across the board here, I just showed, like, you see a graph here of the mix of female versus male at the companies. And for folks that are not aware, the US population is about 50 to 51% female, and very few of these companies are anywhere close to that sort of mix. Then you look at the Black mix. In the US, the percent of Black individuals in this country is about 12.4% from the latest census data. If you Google it, Google says 13.4%. So somewhere between 12.4 and 13.4% is Black. And then you look at the companies and you look at their employee mix, and it is dramatically underrepresented. And I showed Salesforce's numbers here specifically because I worked at Salesforce most recently. And Salesforce is a company that is very progressive and is trying, but even there, only 4.8% of Salesforce's employee base of about 80,000 people are Black. And that's actually 4.8% out of the US mix. They don't look at it globally for lots of reasons. So it's 4.8% out of the US mix is Black, even though the US representation is 12.4%. So these companies are trying to fix it. They're going glacially slow for lots of reasons. There is some good progress, but until those things change, until those systemic biases are beaten out of the system, which I don't have tons of confidence that they will be done anytime soon, there are ways that you can influence a situation and influence the likelihood that you will be seen and considered by the right decision makers. And the right decision makers are A, the recruiter, and B, the hiring manager. Those are the people that are deciding who gets hired. And it's mostly the hiring manager. The recruiter just is the first gatekeeper. So your network and narrative will help you get noticed by recruiters. And when I talk about network, it is the right people at the right sort of companies. And you may very well not have that right now. When I tried to pivot from American Express to Google, I had basically no contacts at Google. But then through my process of trying to get into Google, I looked at who do I know that knows someone at Google? And well, they put me in touch with that person. And I've done that since. So you can build your network out in an intentional way, not in an abusive or a selfish way, but an authentic way, and like with some conscientious direction as well of where you want to start building that network and deepening those ties. And then also it's very important to get your narrative down. So once you start talking to a recruiter, once you start having informationals, you can summarize in 2 to 4 minutes a little bit about you, your background, and why you're interested in Shopify, or why you're interested in Twilio, or why you're interested in SAP or Google or whatever. So those are key aspects that will help you get noticed and then get considered. Another thing I want to call out to folks, so people, I don't know what you think of me coming here. I have been fortunate to be born with some privilege. A white dude, and the zip code that I was born into happens to be a middle-class zip code in Long Island, suburban Long Island. I never had to worry about safety or food or things of that nature. So I've been privileged and advantaged. I've also had the opportunity of luck. There's definitely luck that comes people's way, but there is a lot of effort and learning and growth mindset that I have undertaken and other people can learn. And the whole point, the whole origination of why I created Kedema is my hope to help other people be successful, to learn how to get into these organizations and to have that growth mindset. And this woman, Carol Dweck, on the page here, has defined this, and she's a professor from Stanford. She says, in a growth mindset, challenges are exciting rather than threatening. So rather than thinking, oh, I'm going to reveal my weaknesses, you say, wow, here's a chance to grow. And that's kind of how I've approached recruiting. And when you get rejected, when you get ghosted, there are things that you can learn and grow with that can help improve your process of, essentially, you're just trying to win a game here. You're trying to get a job. You're trying to get someone to pay you hundreds of thousands of dollars for your time. You're renting yourself essentially to a company. So with all that in mind, with my experience in my background, I've worked for 21 different companies and 29 different jobs. So I've kind of figured out how to get jobs well. I've also worked with dozens of other individuals to help them get great jobs, and we'll share some of those success stories. But we at Kedema have essentially boiled down the framework into these 6 steps, and we call it the growth framework very conveniently. First, it's important to identify and define your goals, because if you don't know where you're going, any road will take you there and you're going to go just meandering around. But identify your goals, identify what's important for you, and most importantly, identify your target companies where you would like to work. Not where you just happen to know someone right now, but where it would excite you, because you need to establish a goal of where you want to work. And if you don't know where you want to work, I have a list I can share with you for folks that are filling out the application later. Everybody will get it. We'll make sure we can get everybody a copy of the list of about 85 companies that Kedema recommends. But you can also very easily go to LinkedIn's top 50 companies to work for, or Glassdoor's top 100 companies to work for, and Fortune has their top 100 companies to work for. That will give you a good sense of some good companies to work for. Next, you need to realistically assess your strengths and then play those cards. If you have a background in sales, but you want to go into product, doesn't fucking matter. You are going to be hired as a salesperson. So you leverage your strengths of what you've done, and you get into the door, and that will help increase the chances that you will get selected for an interview, considered for that job, hired for that job, and once you join that company, more successful in that job. And then you can move around, and there's plenty of ways to move around once you're there. But you got to realistically assess your strengths and your experience and leverage that to meet the needs of the hiring manager. Third, this one is the most important: outreach. Build that network at the right companies, reach out, seek advice, have informational interviews. 24 out of the 29 companies I've worked for have come because of who I knew. I still had to interview for most of them, not all, but most of them I still had to interview for. So I still had to know what the answers were. But what got me in the door was who I knew. And I did not start out with a great network, by the way. I built that network. Some of it I had early on, but very little. And most of that you can build. Fourth, you got to work the system. And what I mean by working the system is applying for the right roles at the right places at the right time. And what I mean by the right role, something that is reflecting your strength and years of experience at the right place, the first party job site. So not going to LinkedIn, not going to Glassdoor, not going to Monster or whatever other sites, but instead going to google.com/careers or facebook.com/careers or oracle.com/careers. And it's not always that nomenclature. Sometimes it's stripe.com/jobs or whatever. But every company has their career site and has their job board. That's where you want to look, because that will be the most comprehensive list of jobs, and it will be the most up to date. And you want to apply to these jobs quickly, because as I talked to you about the funnel, if you don't get your roles, your apps in quickly, you're not going to be considered. And when you work this system, when you see a role at Spotify that you're excited about, and you have built that network out with someone at Spotify, you're going to reach out to your buddy at Spotify and say, hey, I see this great marketing role at Spotify. Do you know anything about the hiring manager or the team? And if that person is a booster and an advocate, they will often say, hey, do you want me to refer you into that? You get them to refer you into that, and that will increase your likelihood of talking to a recruiter by about 10-fold. So you work this system every week. The fifth part is you train and have tenacity for the interviews. The interviews are very predictable. Each stage of the interview, the recruiter screen, the hiring manager screen, the interview loops, they all follow a pattern. They are all preparable and they're all beatable. So train and have tenacity for those interviews. And when I say tenacity, you are going to fail a lot. You are going to get rejected a lot. You are going to get ghosted often. It's just, it happens because recruiting is broken, because recruiting is focused on volume and speed of hire, even though you may not think it's so speedy when you're going through the process. But they are not measured, nor do they give a shit usually about the candidate experience. So you will get rejected. You may or may not find out that you got rejected. Hopefully you will. But so you have to interview, you have to prepare, but you also have to be tenacious and be prepared for rejection. And look at rejection as learning and ability for you to grow and improve. And then 6 is high impact negotiations, negotiate for more. And we'll talk a little bit about that. And when you get your first offer, I can tell you in almost every case, it is not the final offer. So do not accept the first offer. Like suggested, think about it, and you can negotiate for more. On the negotiation front, let me just share a little bit about salary and compensation in tech, because a lot of people do not grasp it because it is intentionally complex. And I tell you it's intentionally complex because I just had a client who got an offer from Google, and her offer letter from Google was a 3-page PDF. And then they had another PDF, which is understanding your compensation at Google. And that was 5 pages long. How the hell is someone supposed to understand your compensation when it takes a 5-page document to explain it? So I'm going to explain it on 1 page. I won't get to all the details here, but the base is the salary. You get a salary. My last salary at Salesforce, I think, was $205,000. Then you get a bonus rate. Your bonus rate is based on your level. So I was a level 9 at Salesforce. And because I was a level 9 at Salesforce, that puts me in at a 20% bonus rate at Salesforce. There are different levels and different bonus rates at different companies. So if I was making 205, my bonus would have been 20% of 205 or $41,000, assuming that I do decently and the company does decently. There is a multiplier that could have gone from 0 to 2 times that. So I could have got between 0 and $82,000 of bonus on top of that. Then at these big tech companies, they give away equity, or what is commonly referred to as restricted stock units. And restricted stock units are shares that are given to you, but you are not able to actually take possession of them. And they're kind of put in escrow. And over a period of time, they are given to you. So when I joined Google, they gave me 180 shares. I think the share price at the time was $270. Now it's $2,700. And 45 of them out of that 180 vested after 1 year, then another 45, then another 45, then another 45. So over the course of 4 years, 180 shares vested, and then I was able to sell them. But those RSUs become quite valuable, not just because the share prices increase, but because they shower more and more of these RSUs on you. So a lot of these tech companies, especially the public tech companies, and we go back to those different type of companies, it's the ones in the top 2 tiers that are public companies that are providing RSUs, restricted stock units. And that's essentially as good as cash. All 3 of those things are all as good as cash. They all go to your W-2. Startup compensation is a lot more tricky to predict and to calculate for. You get options, which give you the option to buy the shares at a price that should be considerably lower than what the price is. But you can only ever get value out of that if there is a liquidation event. And the liquidation event means that the company goes public or the company is acquired. And then it depends on what value the company went public at and what it got acquired or what it got acquired for. And it depends on how much your shares have been diluted. And what I mean by diluted is if after you come in, if they issue more shares, your percent in the company actually decrease. So your value in the company could be diluted. So there's a lot of complexity there. But what I can tell you is when I worked in venture capital, there is a common rule of thumb in venture capital, the third rule. 1/3 of the companies will be the big hits for that venture capital fund. 1/3 of the companies will be a break even for that venture capital fund. And 1/3 of the companies that they invest in will just go belly up. And they don't know which ones are the third, but they have a whole portfolio. So they have 100 companies. So they don't really care which ones succeed and which ones don't. But if you are employed at one of those companies. So you're going to give a shit of which third you are in. And in the first third, where it's a roaring success, like what Stripe is going to be likely, what Gong is going to be likely, you will be in good shape. If you're in the second third, the venture capitalists and the owners of the company do well, the employees don't do so great. And in the last third, you're going to lose your job because the company is going under. So that's why I generally don't advise people to join startups if you can join a more established company. And there's also a lot bigger standard deviation in quality of talent, quality of systems, and quality of compensation. There are also other tons of comps and benefits that are extremely valuable at these tech companies. And these are all real things that I've taken advantage of over the course of my career: sign-on bonus, relocation bonus, employee stock purchase plan. So you guys can read everything here. But then there's awesome benefits also at Google and Facebook, like free food. At Salesforce, I got free internet and free cell phone reimbursement and childcare reimbursement. You get really nice paternity and maternity leave. So there's lots of good things at these companies, which people don't necessarily understand how valuable it is until you get inside the companies. We'll talk a little bit about negotiation here, just to give you a couple of tips. But you should put off the conversation about compensation as long as you possibly can. Quite often you are operating in a place of unequal information versus the company. And by you revealing any cards and you telling them even what you earn now, you are probably doing yourself a disservice. And note that in most states, companies are no longer allowed to ask what you currently make. You are not required to share that information. You should only share that information if you think it helps you. And the reasons why it could potentially help you if you think that you're getting paid quite well right now. You should do your research. You need to consider your constraints. This, I don't know if people, I talk to people about cashing in their gold bars. So people have this term of golden handcuffs. These are things that a company or an organization may hold you back to. So maybe you're at a company that has offered to pay for your tuition, but you have to stay at that company for 2 years beyond. Those are like golden handcuffs. They're essentially handcuffing you to the company that if you don't stay there for 2 years, you're going to have to pay that money back. Well, don't look at those as golden handcuffs. Instead, what you should do is, at the time of offer, you can reveal that, and the company that is trying to hire you will likely say, you know what, we'll give you the $12,000 to cover the tuition benefit that you're losing out that you have to pay back, and we'll give that to you in terms of sign-on bonus. So you can cash in those, you can turn those golden handcuffs into gold bars. And then if you have any questions about negotiation support, if you have an offer, either impending or in your inbox, you can send me an email. You can send us an email at negotiations@KadimaCareers.com, and we do help with negotiation services. Let me talk a little bit about who Kedema is for, and I want to start wrapping this up so we have some time for questions. But Kedema is for if you're in tech now, but you're not growing quickly in your career, or you want to pivot into tech, but you don't really know how to make the switch. Both of those are completely doable, and both of those will enable you to work for great companies, earning more money, and getting great benefits. And then if you're in one of those two buckets and you want to get paid what you deserve, you want to be excited about your job, and I can tell you that these jobs are fun, exciting, not all of them, but a lot of them are, and there's a lot of internal mobility capability as well. And you want to dramatically accelerate your career trajectory. That's who Kedema was built for. And then who is most effective for Kedema? And we'll be evaluating some of these factors with the application, the lightweight application that we look at is looking at grit. And Angela Duckworth, a professor from University of Pennsylvania, defines grit as passion and perseverance. People that hustle, like these jobs, there's 135,000 jobs open now at the 85 companies we look at. So there's a lot, but when there's a good job that gets posted, you need to move fast, and you need to move fast, but thoughtfully through the whole process, because the interview process, the recruiting process takes a while. So you do not want to be the bottleneck on your side. Third, we talked a little bit about it before, the growth mindset, being open to feedback and a learning. And we do give very specific feedback within the Kedema program to help you improve your job acquisition skills. Fourth, accountability. So we give homework. We do not check your homework. When we say, hey, we want you to have 5 informational interviews next week, we expect that you will put the actions in place to get those informational interviews set up and conducted. And then most importantly, you need to be ready and willing and interested in accelerating your career, because we will give you the tools, but the energy and the actions will come from you. And we're going to teach you how to fish, but you need to go cast the line and you need to go catch those big fish. What does Kedema offer? So we provide you with the confidence, we provide you with the expertise, we break down what the process is. So a typically opaque and confusing interview process, we will break it down. We will give you the support and guidance and tell you what the recruiter and the hiring managers are really thinking. We will give you insider information. We have lots of questions. We have a lot of interview questions that we share with our clients. We provide actionable feedback, unwavering support. You also build relationships. There's a whole Kadima community. You will not be the only one in the group that is looking to accelerate their career. You will get lots more interviews. People that go through Kedema, that go through the process, talk to a lot more recruiters, talk to a lot more hiring managers, get lots more interviews, which will turn into offers, which will allow you to negotiate for more and get money and help to accelerate your career. So you put in the time, you put in the effort, matched with our support, you will succeed in this program. More specifically, what you get these 10 items. One, you get 3 months of unwavering support. So it's a 3-month program that's starting in the beginning of April. We already have classes now, but we're doing our next onboarding for the BIT community in April. There's going to be in-depth onboarding and goal setting with me. I sit down with you. We talk about you, your situation, your strengths, and your opportunities. You get monthly one-on-one coaching with me. You get weekly group career workshops at flexible times. So there's one on Tuesday evening at 8 p.m. Eastern time. There's one on Thursday morning at 10 a.m. Eastern time. Those are led by me. Typically, sometimes I bring in some guest speakers. I'm having a Amazon bar raiser interviewer lead a session next week. You get resume review with specific insider feedback and tips. I do not write your resume. I do not write your LinkedIn profile, but I give you that feedback and I give you the instruction of how to do it yourself. And I can put you in touch with some people that will do that for you for money. Although I do highly recommend people do it on their own. We'll do mock interviews and actual interview real interview feedback. You'll get unlimited email support, introductions to global network of advocates at top companies. So I happen to be very connected with a lot of these organizations. I have good relationships with them. Unlike recruiters, I don't charge them for talent. So they know that I'm being selective with who I work with. And when you are a good fit for a role at a company and you don't have a connection on your own, which I will highly recommend that you build those connections on your own and will be more effective for you, I will make an introduction. And I've done that plenty of times. And then negotiation services. So once you get your offer, we work together to get you between $5,500 and $143,000 more money. And those are based on real results I've gotten for people. Here are some examples of folks that I work with. The top one, Black woman. She went from a independent consultant to Dropbox, making $18,000 more. Second one, a Latinx woman going from VP of Customer Success to PayPal, earning $55,000 more. Next one, Black woman, and she actually has a testimonial on my LinkedIn page, is now at Facebook, earning $78,000 more. So you can see the numbers here. On average, we've been returning people about $85,000 to $111,000 more after working with us. There are some testimonials you can check out on my LinkedIn channel. You can also look on LinkedIn. You'll see recommendations from people. This shows that there's 29 recommendations here. I think I'm up to 40. But anyway, you can check out LinkedIn. All my recommendations are out there and testimonials. So the cost of the program, and again, we're giving away 3 scholarships here, but for the folks that don't get the scholarship, we are offering a discount for folks in BIT, and I'll talk about that. But we've set up our pricing to get you more than a 10 times return on your investment. So we've been getting people between $85,000 and $111,000 more. The price point is set at only $5,000 for the 3-month program, or split out over 3 months of $1,750. The other big investment on your side is time. So this is not a magic bullet where you just swipe your credit card and all of a sudden you get a job. You need to put in the time and effort. We provide the support, but on average, we see that people that have the most success put in about 10 hours of work into their career, into accelerating their career. And then even though we do have the price point of $5,250 over three monthly payments, or $5,000 for one payment, we have never turned anyone away because of cost constraints. So we're coming out with different products that are going to be cheaper and potentially either free. So if you have any particular challenge with being able to pay for the course, and you want to pay for the course, and you want to join the course for every other reason, we will figure something out. So you can scan right here on the QR code. We are offering, thanks to Dennis's generosity and the generosity of Blacks in Tech Foundation, we are offering 3 scholarships through Kedema, through Blacks in Tech for Kedema. So you need to be a Black in Tech member. I'm assuming that you are because you're seeing this, and you need to apply for the scholarships. And the way you apply for the scholarship, it's not a very in-depth application process, but we do ask you a series of questions. I think we say the survey takes 4 minutes. I think it really takes like 2 or 3 minutes. You can scan the QR code, or you can go to kadimacareers.com/BIT, fill out that application. We will be looking at applicants for the next week until March 24th. And then we will be selecting winners. I'll be working with Dennis and our team to select 3 winners of the scholarship based on time of application, and also our confidence that those people will do best in the program. And then Dennis put something in the chat right now about how you can join BIT. And the cost to join BIT is, I believe, free. So you should definitely join that. Highly recommend that. And then anybody as part of BIT that has applied and did not get one of the 3 scholarships, we are extending a special 10% discount to folks in BIT. So that instead of the $5,000 cost, it would be $4,500. So we are offering that 10% discount for folks in BIT. And then that's all I got. So my 2 calls to action are: 1, please, like, if you like, follow me on LinkedIn. I offer lots of advice there. Hopefully you find it beneficial, entertaining, educational. You can follow me on LinkedIn. And also, please apply for the KCAP scholarship. And with that, that is my spiel. And I'll, Dennis, I see you're back on the screen. I'm happy to answer questions or do anything that you'd like right now.
Yeah. So there's one question in the chat. Alexis is asking, how should we respond if someone or a company asks about a current salary? How do you dodge that one?
Great question. So it usually comes first from the recruiter in your first conversation with a company. The way that you dive that is, I want to get paid fairly for the scope and the impact of the role. And then if they keep pushing you, your next response is, you know what, I'm really excited to work at Stripe. I don't think compensation is going to get in the way of our conversation here. And I've only heard one time in my experience where those 2 responses yielded a 3rd prompt by the company to say, well, how much money are you seeking? And in that case, that woman was prepared and she came up with a number. But if you're not prepared, it's totally fine to say, you know what, I need to think about that. But never, or almost never, reveal what you're making now. And when I ask people what they want to make, their response to me 9 out of 10 times is, well, I'm making $85,000 now, so I want to make maybe 100. And they're angering in their mind. So you probably don't know in your mind like you are using anchoring of a very low number because most people in BIT are probably Black, and all the data that I've seen are Black employees are paid X percent of like maybe 63 cents on the dollar. So your number in your head is probably discounting you 37% from a bare minimum, let alone you're not working at a company that's paying you well, perhaps. So do not get the number that you're getting paid now out of your head. That is not what you're worth. That is what your company right now is paying you, but it has no correlation with what you're worth. So hopefully that answers that question.
That answered it for me. And oh, by the way, anybody who wants to ask their question verbally, you can just use the raise your hand, and I'll let you talk. It's hit more next to your name, and you should be.
And I see some questions here. Should I
yeah, just go for it.
Okay. So there's a question: what offerings are available for preparing for technical coding interviews? So that's a great question. It's one that I don't have the best answer for. So what I do, I help people. When you think about Google, when you think about Facebook, they have hundreds of thousands of employees. About a third of those employees are engineers, are SWEs or SDEs, software engineers, software developers, where you should be preparing for technical coding interviews. I focus on the other 2/3: sales, marketing, operations, customer success, business development, partnerships, finance, strat ops. So I don't have the best answer for you, but what I can tell you is there's great services out there. If you DM me separately, there's two guys that are really putting great stuff out there on YouTube, and I forget their name now. It's Alex and I forget, but DM me. Those guys are putting a lot of good information out there for free. There's lots of ways to get that information that I am not the expert on.
Oh, incidentally, since you asked, Blacks in Technology does have resources for folks who need assistance in technical interviews. So if you join in the member section, there are some resources available for you that you can just sign up for and get set up with.
Cool. Thank you, Dennis. Thank you for that plug that I was not aware of, because I have not been looking for technical jobs myself. So I've not explored that section of the BIT website.
No worries. No worries.
There's another question on here. What's the best place to research going value for job positions? You can look like levels.fyi is good. Candor.io is good. Blind is good. Fishbowl is good. Glassdoor is okay. But I would put a little less, if you develop the outreach and you start developing relationships at these companies, you can also get this information from people that you talk to at those companies, which will be real information. So there's lots of ways to get the information, but you will never have as much information as a company does who is negotiating with you. So you do not want to reveal those cards. So you can follow those sources. You can also reach out to me if you have an offer in hand and write to negotiations@kadimacareers.com, and we can help you there too. Should I just go through some of the questions in the chat?
Yeah. Pick the ones you think are most relevant.
Okay. For someone hoping to transition or pivot into tech, would you recommend garnering online education, for instance, than spending time going forward in smaller companies? Online education, like whether it's Coursera or certification programs or going back to school, I don't think is the best use of time. It can help if you are interested in the topic, definitely do it. But most hiring managers are not going to hire someone because they got their certification in PMP, project management. I don't even know what the other P stands for. They are going to hire people that have actually been a project manager in the past. So certifications are, only do it if it's interesting to you. Otherwise, you're much better off building and developing relationships in the companies where you want to work. And if you have those conversations with those individuals and they're like, hey, you need to get certified in Salesforce before you get this role as a SDR, a sales development rep at Salesforce, well, maybe then it makes sense for you to get that certification. But unless you are being explicitly told by people inside the company, it's not a good use of your time. And I've never hired anyone based on their certifications. And frankly, I don't know what certifications people on my team ever had. Let's see. Next question. How do I get information on how Google on-site interviews are going since you haven't worked there for several years? So I'm not sure exactly what that means, but Google on-site interviews are being done the same way they were done when I was there, the same way they were done for a while back. The thing, it has evolved a bit. When I interviewed at Google, I had 11 rounds of interviews. They have since streamlined that to 4 rounds of interviews, so lucky you. But Google interviews are very predictable. There's a lot of information out there. I'm not going to go into the specifics of Google. Well, Google interviews, they focus on 4 specific topics or 4 specific areas. They focus on GCA, general cognitive ability, leadership, RRK, which is role-related knowledge, and Googliness, which I hate because that prevents diversity, because Googliness to me is not going to be the same as what Googliness means to Dennis. And there's more people that look like me than look like Dennis at Google. So there's going to be more white dudes that define what Googliness is than what a black dude defines as Googliness. And anyway, don't get me started on that. I used to always interview on the GCA, the general cognitive ability part. But the Google interviews are very predictable. And if you get an interview with Google, they give you a lot of information of how to prepare for that. So does Amazon. And those 2 companies are probably the cream of the crop in terms of their interview structure and discipline, but they also give you a lot of information of how to prepare for it. So your key aspect is building the network and getting those applications in so you can get to that recruiter.
So Alan knows what he talks of, and I can attest. And Amazon does give you the formula. They said this is a STAR method. You need to study it, understand it before your interview. And if you do, you'll probably get to the next round. Same with Google. They'll tell you the formula. You just have to do it.
Yep.
That's that. We have a couple of questions. I'm going to allow a couple of folks to talk real quick.
Sure.
First, Danielle, and then Yolanda. So Danielle, I'm going to allow you to speak. Just unmute your mic and.
Hey, Daniel.
It's Daniel.
Oh, Daniel, I'm sorry. I said Daniel, sorry.
But yeah, quick question is, when you spoke on certifications, I know you said that they don't typically, or you've never really hired someone based on their certifications, but I'm somebody in tech who's trying to like move forward, and I'm having an extremely difficult time cracking the position that I believe I may need certifications for. So like something to the effect of like a cloud engineer or something in StratOps or something like that. How would you say we approach those things if we don't necessarily have the experience of a cloud engineer, nor the certifications to back it up?
Yeah, so the cloud engineer I've never hired for. I've hired people for StratOps, which you mentioned, and I don't know what or any certifications that they have there. What I would, so I think it's important that you take those, and if you don't mind muting Daniel, because there's some background noise there.
Sorry, yeah, I got you.
Okay. It can't, like, the only harm that does for you taking the certification is it's distraction for higher value as actions that you can be taking by talking to people at Google, by talking to people at Amazon, and building your network out there. And that will be a better use of your time than sitting in front of your computer taking multiple certifications. So I'm not saying that it's a waste of time, but it's not the most efficient use of time that you can be doing.
And we are right at the top of the hour. Alan, since we started 5 minutes late, can you stay 5 minutes over?
Let me just check my calendar quickly. I cannot, unfortunately.
Okay. All right. So tell you what, for all the folks that still have questions, I'm going to drop my email in the chat. Email me. I'll put them all into one email for Alan. We'll get them all answered for you. But Alan, I do want to thank you for your time. I appreciate it. It was like I thought it was going to be, a very fast hour. You dropped a lot of gems. Thank you very much for all you do. And yeah, we'll be looking forward to having our first cohort of the Kadima Academy coming up next month.
Awesome. And yeah, please reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'm very active there. And you can also email me directly at alan@kadimacareers.com. But thank you, Dennis, for having me, and appreciate the support from BIT.
All right. All right. Well, thanks, everyone. Have a good rest of the day. And oh, one last thing. We have a career fair on Friday at from 2 to 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Check the website for details. See you there. Take care, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.